Hi everybody, this is Putty. I thought that I would bring you something a little bit different today. This is another rendition of Why Should I Care? This is the series that I thought would be important for people who are interested in design. Because when we're talking about design, we're talking about something that's very different than simply consuming and enjoying. And so I thought today that I would talk a little bit about a game that I really enjoy from a company I really enjoy. And that game is Deep Sea Adventure. This is by a company called Oink Games. They also make a lot of other games called Fake Artist Goes to New York. There's another one called Troll. All of these games are tiny. They fit in this tiny itty bitty little minimalist box. And they all are actually pretty interesting overall. So in this game, you and a bunch of criminal elements have rented a submarine. You've heard that there is treasure to be found off of the coast, and so you're not rich enough to actually do anything on your own, and so you get together with a bunch of other criminals to compete and try and get treasure. Now, the way that this game functions is sort of like the prisoner's dilemma. So you are going down into the ocean. You have one of those little suits on. You're going to go and get this treasure. Now, as you're going down into the ocean, it doesn't really cost you a lot of oxygen. But the second that you start taxing the oxygen levels, like when you pick up a piece of treasure, you'll start taking the oxygen of the submarine. Now, as you can tell, if all of the pieces are in here, this is actually a pretty significant amount of treasure. Now, here, I'll move it up a little bit. Up to 6 players, and you can see there are these pieces. They look like little guys with a backpack. It's kind of the best that they could do. And so everyone begins in a sub. You have 25 oxygen. Your goal is to take these 2 6-sided dice that have 1 through 3 on them, and you simply roll them, and like this is a 5, so I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I'm gonna add a piece of treasure, but we know by looking at the instruction book that this is a point level game. So these early pieces are worth 0 to 3. These little pieces, the secondary pieces are 4 to 7, and these last ones are 8 to 11. With 12 to 15 in the impossible to get range. So if you have 6 people who are all on this boat trying to get out, your job is to run and grab as much treasure as you can. The second you pick up a piece of treasure, you now start taking the oxygen of the ship. So like, let's say that as this yellow player, I grabbed a piece of treasure. And so now I have to walk back with it. So I have this piece of treasure. So each turn that I come about, the first thing that happens is I have 1 piece of treasure, so we lose 1 oxygen. I then have to roll these 2 3-sided dice, and this is a 4, but because I'm carrying a treasure, I can only move 3, because I have to bring it down. So 1, 2, 3. Now, if I go all the way down here, and I have 2 or 3 pieces of treasure, and I'm taking up 2 or 3 oxygen every time, then the amount of oxygen that's being depleted for the ship overall is going down. What ends up happening, or what has happened in the games that Kristen and I have played and other people that I've played with have done, is that there's always some troll out there. He'll just sit there, or she'll just sit there and roll and get way the heck out here and grab a bunch of treasure and then murder everybody. And then in the next turn, people will try to get revenge, and so a bunch of people will run out to try to grab a bunch of treasure, and she'll just grab, or he'll just grab 1 or 2 of these and get maybe, 2 or 3 points, because they just need to get back. Now, this is a tiny game. Now, and really the whole thing is, why should I care? Well, a lot of people, when they start designing games, go for broke. They want to design the games that they've played their entire lives, and most of those games are going to be AAA experiences, or like super complex, grandiose board games like some Call of Cthulhu like Elder Sign or Arkham Horror or something like that. But with just a tiny box and a bunch of different colored pips, they've managed to create this game that the people around your table are going to remember for a long time. And honestly, this game is a lot better than most of the larger experiences that you'll find. And so this is a cheap to produce game. This is a game that you could kickstart relatively easily. It has a nice aesthetic. You're going to get a bunch of fans for it. And I think that with just a little, like a 30-minute gameplay, you actually play, I think, 3 rounds, and then everyone can play. It's a great filler game, but it's also a great introductory game. Like, we played this with my nieces and nephews who are in their 7, 8, 9, 10 range. And they picked it up right away. They suddenly understood that there's only so much of one resource, and that they, as players, had the ability to manipulate or negotiate over that resource. And so there was a whole lot of table talk that began. This is Deep Sea Adventure. This is a Japanese game from Oink Games, and it comes in English, German, French, and Japanese in terms of instructions. And while you can't really read the back, you will be able to read the instructions. It's about $20. Highly recommend it. Have a good one.